The damage was done so badly that we're not going to reconcile no matter what. So however we are made accountable to God, I don't want to be accountable to this church and all their BS. So I'm going to let Mary go and do her thing. And so I guess, to be fair, Mary feels abandoned, but I didn't kick me out. Christine, Janelle, and Mary all chose to have me leave the home. And I wasn't ever going to leave them, no matter how much I didn't love them.
Natural thought, just a thought process. This is something that I was driven to by my faith. And in retrospect, I think it's very important for the whole world to know that I would do it again out of love.
You guys have to understand that I actually answer to essentially a higher call. I'm part of an order. I'm part of a group, a church. I feel like I'm maxed out and I don't want to take another wife. I'm not interested in that. But there is a requirement by, let's say I answer to a higher calling. And if that requirement comes along and I have a choice in it, then I will do it. I would prefer not to.
I like marriage, and I'm a repeat offender, so I have adopted a faith that embraces that lifestyle. In fact, it recommends it. I like to reward good behavior, so if you're good with one marriage, they figure you'll be good with two. I hope they think I'll be good with four.
Just go, hey, Kody, I'm out. And I was like, I don't want to be a quitter. And she's going, well, you're a coward. Well, no. I'm not a coward. Nothing scares me but poverty. Nothing. Oh, I was a polygamist. It's all ego, baby.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Thursday, September 26th, 2024, and I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. There's been a lot of talk online because Kody Brown made a comment recently on Sister Wives that he would never leave his wives no matter how much he didn't love them. He would never leave the marriage no matter how much he didn't love them, meaning he would have stayed in loveless marriages because that's why. And over the years, Kody has had quite the number of ways of saying things about women and these wives that this comment shouldn't really surprise people. People like to get appalled and outraged when they listen to Kody Brown speak about the women in his life. But for years, he's kind of been telling us who exactly he is, although he's been coding it in language that sort of downplayed the severity of the situation that he brought these women into. Kody Brown was tapped on the shoulder in 2009 by a producer named Tim Gibbons, who wanted to do a pro-polygamy show, and he wanted to show that polygamy wasn't like Warren Jeffs. Tim was on a mission to prove the media wrong, to prove that what we were seeing on television with the compounds and the busloads of children being taken out of Texas related to the FLDS and Warren Jeffs, he wanted to show that it was just a lifestyle choice and it was done with consent. But it was in the very first episode that Kody actually told on himself and revealed the truth.
I have adopted a faith that embraces that lifestyle. In fact, it recommends it. I like to reward good behavior, so if you're good with one marriage, they figure you'll be good with two. I hope they think I'll be good with four.
The very first scene of Sister Wives, Kody's driving in his car. He is talking to the producer with a smug look on his face, saying that he loves marriage, he's a repeat offender, he's embraced a faith that recommends polygamy, and that they reward good behavior. So if you're good with one wife, they'll give you a second. And he says, and I hope that they think I'll be good with four. The very first episode, Kody admitted that his church was assigning him wives, that his church was granting him wives as a reward. That should have told America everything we needed to know. That leadership in the Apostolic United Brethren were rewarding men's quote unquote good behavior with more women. So if you're obedient and you don't disparage the brethren, you get more wives. Kody wanted more wives because in order to get up in leadership in the AUB, you can't just have 3. If he was going to aspire to be a prophet, Kody needs a minimum of 7 wives. Yep. So in the very first episode, he told everyone, listen, wives are a reward, a gift. They are not a person. But for some reason, America had ignored this and they tried to buy into this whole concept. So years later, Kody was on Anderson Cooper and he was asked there, would you take more wives? And Kody again stated this.
Certainly not right now.
That doesn't sound like a no to me.
You guys have to understand that I actually answer to essentially a higher call. I'm part of an order. I'm part of a group, a church. I feel like I'm maxed out and I don't want to take another wife. I'm not interested in that. But there is a requirement by, let's say I answer to a higher calling. And if that requirement comes along and I have a choice in it, then I will do it. I would prefer not to.
Kody's coded language might be lost on some people, but it's not lost on me. What he was saying is that he belongs to a order or a group. That's what people in the AUB call the church, the group. And he says that if he were to get a calling or a higher order and he had a choice, he would take it. Meaning a higher calling is when a brethren from the church calls a man in and tells them they're going to do something. It could be that they're going to be a leader in a part of the church. It could be that they're going to be called up to be an apostle. It could be that they want them to work in a different area of the church. It could be, we're going to give you a new wife. And what he's saying is that, well, I don't really want to right now, but if the leadership, if the leaders call me up and say that I need to take another wife and they have a new wife for me, I'll do it as long as I have a choice. Meaning, as long as I get to pick him out. So if the leader said, you're ready for a 5th wife, they give him a 5th wife. Now, they can try to persuade women to be found and to come into their family and ask to come into their family, or the leadership can actually just assign a woman to a family. And that has happened in this church. In fact, someone from the church, an ex-member, told me that one of their sister-in-laws was widowed and they tried to put her into a family without any choice and just give her to another man to be in that family as a reward. They will 100% place women in marriages with no choice. But on the show, they kept saying that this is what we chose. We consented. Everyone wanted this, because their entire mantra was that this was consensual and not coerced. But the truth is that most of these marriages were coerced, they were manipulated, and they were arranged. Kody and the wives have had very different conversations about their church on the show. And when the show first went on air, the AUB did not want them to go on television. They didn't want the AUB exposed because there's more than just arranged marriages and polygamy happening in this cult. Way more than that. There's lots of illegal activities happening within this group because the group doesn't abide by the law. They don't believe that they should have to abide by the law. They believe they only abide by God's law and the rules of the church. So they do things that aren't legal and they didn't want that kind of exposure. Kody felt it would be great to bring this all out of hiding and help push a better narrative because he wanted polygamy to be decriminalized. When the Browns made the decision to go on air, the one agreement they made with their church is that they would never say the name of their church on the show. And on the show, they have never said that we come from the Apostolic United Brethren. They have never said the name of the church. Christine has talked about her grandfather, who is Rulin. And if you know how to Google, you can just put in Rulin Allred and you can find out what group he led. It's pretty simple. So that agreement meant that they would publicly distance themselves from the church, though they could maintain a relationship with church leaders and within the church. And for a few years, they traveled back to church to go to services. At some point in time, they stop going to the services, but they're not fully disconnected from the church because Kody is still communicating with his family members that are still in the group. He still has friends from the leadership that show up on the show. His friend Kyle Henderson came while they were in Flagstaff and talked about his marriage where his wife left him. It was really gross because he was currently at that time facing charges for DV and going through a really awful divorce. And Kody was maintaining relationships with these leaders. Now Kody has changed his tune, and now he says that he doesn't want to deal with the BS of the leadership in the church. And he is saying that he doesn't believe that he needs to recognize the authority of this church, which is so weird because in the very first season, he wanted us to believe that his church that had given him these wives wasn't like the church from Warren Jeffs. He wanted us to believe they were nothing like the FLDS. He wanted us to believe that his leaders were different, they were better, they didn't have the same problems as these other churches. There was no underage brides, there was no assigned marriages, there was no child SA, there was no SA, there was no coercion. It was just consenting adults. But they didn't talk about the truth about the church and instead just constantly bashed the FLDS and acted like they were above it while intentionally misleading the public about their church. Kody now, after his church has given him 4 wives, has said that he doesn't need to go to them for a release because he doesn't respect their authority. Their authority was fine as long as Kody was in their good graces. The authority was fine as long as Kody got things from them. The authority was fine as long as he was rewarded. But now that he's being not rewarded and not given more wives, and the fractures between Kody and the brethren has gotten so bad, now he's saying it's a church that's full of BS. So if that's the case, if 14 years later he's telling us that the church was BS, he's telling the truth. He was lying the rest of the time. And it's really that simple. Every time Kody said he loved his wives, he lied. Every time he said that he found love with the wives, he lied. Every time Kody said that the women had a choice, he lied. Every time the women said that they had a choice, they lied. Every time they made a claim about their relationships being consensual, not coerced or manipulated, they lied. Every time they said that they didn't have the same issues in their church as the FLDS, they lied. The family knew while filming was going on air, they knew the following information. They knew that Rulon Allred had been murdered in 1978. They knew that Rulon Allred went to prison, and it wasn't just because he practiced polygamy. They knew that he had minor brides, and one of his brides was 13 years old and given to him as a gift. They knew that leaders in their church had been accused of SAing their daughters, SAing their stepdaughters, SAing other women in the church, nieces, nephews, children. They knew that their leader, Owen Allred, had been accused of fraud and had to go to a trial because he stole money from an actress named Virginia Hill, which then they used to purchase property for compounds. They knew that one of their brethren went to prison because he was arrested for essaying his stepdaughters because he believed that he was from Jesus and that he needed to keep the seed clean. It's gross. They knew all of this was happening. They also knew that when girls were 12, they went and were invited to start going to dances because the young girls need to be introduced to the men in the church. They knew that men started scoping out girls at the age of 12 and discussing the bartering and transferring and the trading of their daughters for wives. They knew that some girls were being placed into marriage at 16 or 17 years old because they were going by the minimum age where a parent can consent for a child to get married as a teenager. So in the state of Utah, they can get around child brides as long as a parent can consent. And I think it's either 16 or 17 years old. So they knew that underage brides were going, and they knew that grooming was happening, and they knew that coercion was happening. They also knew abuse was happening. They might have ignored it. They might have believed it wasn't abuse. They might have not even understood it to be that way. But Kody's own statements throughout the years have proven that he knew what this church was about. And he said that Christine came to him while they were still in Las Vegas, and she said that she didn't believe in the principle of plural marriage. She wasn't happy in it. She didn't like it. And yet they still promoted polygamy for profit. They also knew that when they got married in the temple, that the women took a vow to never disobey their priesthood authority. Kody took a vow to the church when he converted that he would never disobey the leadership or the brethren, his priesthood authority. Kody's authority are the church leaders, and the women's, his wives' authority are the church leaders, but their husbands. When they are sealed in their temple, and the AUB has a temple, they have one in Mexico, and then they have an endowment house in Utah. They take a vow to never disobey their priesthood authority, which means Kody's say goes, Kody's word goes, and disobeying him and disagreeing with him is grounds for reprimand. It's grounds for getting disciplined, getting neglected, being abandoned, maybe even getting backhanded. He ruled his family with an iron fist and with verbal assault and intimidation. The women lied, but Kody was in authority and they couldn't say no. Kody has been pretending for 14 years that he lived in a world where consent was an option. And it wasn't an option. It never was an option. And the women are still bound in a contract with him on a show where they are with a man that is effectively labor trafficked them for 14 years. The women, if you watch earlier episodes, would often look to each other, look to Kody, guard their words because they couldn't speak poorly about Kody. Speaking negatively about Kody is speaking against your priesthood authority. Kody was their authority, and they knew that, and they never said that on the show. And Kody never said that on the show. So when they said we did this with consent, is it really consent if you can't tell your husband no? Is it really consent if you can't disagree with your husband? Is it really consent and equal if the man has the final say in everything? And a woman can be abandoned financially, neglected, have her kids go into poverty and do without, and potentially get physically abused by their husband if they say no? Or do they just keep sweet and positive, like Mary told Christine when she was struggling early on with Kody, and told her that she just needed to keep things positive whenever Kody was around and don't talk about the heavy things. Just be positive. They knew this was all happening. And now the women are coming out, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, and they're telling the truth now. I know it's easy for the public to get mad at them and say they lied. They did lie, but they also had to obey their authority. And as long as Kody was claiming them as his property, they were his property, and they didn't know anything other than that. They knew that if they disregarded him and disrespected him, not only would they lose Kody, but they could lose their entire community. They could lose their families. They could lose their friends. And they had a faith, and Kody exploited the faith. He coerced them. He manipulated them. He admitted it's all ego. He admitted it. He admitted that he was a polygamist. It was all ego, baby. He admitted, I never loved them. He's not lying. He's telling the truth. He's hurt. He's angry, but he's not hurt or angry because he loves them. He's angry because he lost control. He's angry that he lost his authority. He's angry that he lost their obedience. He's angry that they're trash talking him and going through the rumor mill of the family. Because when everything was working well for Kody, no one could talk back to him. No one could say anything bad for him. All of his dirty deeds were covered up. All of his bad behavior was pushed under the rug. All of the abuse was ignored. And to this day, their children are still being silenced by Kody. There are children in this family that have been abused, that have talked about their abuse, and now are bound into NDAs, and Kody wanted to sue so that they couldn't disparage the show or ruin his paycheck. They know that there are secrets in this family that are so dark and disturbing that if they told them outright, the show would end. And Kody keeps going. Now, as the women continue to extract themselves, Christine stood up for herself a week ago and filed a lawsuit against Kody. but they still are unraveling what they went through. And Kody was their abuser. And for some people, when you get out of an abusive relationship, it can take years for you to even identify what happened and even know that that person is dangerous. Kody's not lying. We can find it disgusting what he's saying, but he's finally telling the truth. And he's telling all of us that we already knew, that polygamy is exactly what we thought it was, that polygamous cults are exactly who we thought they were, and that the AUB is no different than the FLDS. What are your thoughts? Leave some comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.